What's going on, everybody? We're back for another episode. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. He's Tony Michael in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is episode 173 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. And tonight, Tony and I are diving into the speculation on the Crystal Lake Friday the 13th series coming to Peacock. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live! Episode 173. Friday the 13th is coming to television, quote unquote, in a series, a prequel series. What does it mean? What is it going to, what is the story going to be? Will it be any good? I don't know. Tony, how you doing?
It's gonna be dog shit.
It's gonna be dog shit?
Yeah, no, it's not.
I don't know, maybe.
No, it's not. I'm good. It's Monday. It's raining here in Georgia right now. It's a rainy, gloomy day.
It's a rainy, gloomy day.
Shitty day. Yes.
Gotcha. So Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Is
Friday the 13th is finally coming back.
It's finally coming back. Are you
what? How long is it?
Are you able to raise up your mic a little bit? Sorry, your volume on your end. I've got you up. I just don't want to. Maybe in your settings, maybe. I can bring you up more. I just don't want to overdo it. Maybe your mic's down a little bit. If it's not, don't worry about it. I mean, you're not like, you're not too bad.
Is that better? Check.
Yes, that's better.
There we go. Yeah, sometimes this system that we use, it resets the volume for whatever reason internally. But all right, there we go. We are good now.
That's a little better. Yes, I think you're matching me a little bit.
Right.
So Friday the 13th. Well, you know what? Let me jump over to the other screen and read this
synopsis.
This little blurb. This is now again. I mean, this is a month old. People have known about this for a month now, but let's dive over to the screen.
Did you even do a video on this or?
I haven't, no, because when this dropped, I flew to Phoenix like a week later and
that's right.
Was doing Dylan Zoo Nightmare and shit. So I have not. But this here you go. Friday the 13th prequel series Crystal Lake is coming to Peacock. I think that's an appropriate name for a Friday the 13th series, just as I think Haddonfield would probably be a good name for a Halloween series. Peacock.
Great title. Simple.
Yep.
You get it, right?
100%. Peacock has announced that a Friday the 13th prequel series titled Crystal Lake is coming to the streaming service. The series, from producers at A24 and writer and showrunner Brian Fuller. Friday the 13th is one of the most iconic horror franchises in movie history, and we were dying to revisit the story with our upcoming drama series Crystal Lake. Susan Rovner, I believe, chairman of entertainment content at NBC Universal Television and Streaming, said in a comment. We can't wait to get to work with Brian Fuller, a gifted visionary creator who I've had the pleasure of being a longtime friend and collaborator, Rovner said. Fuller said he's been thinking about this story since he was a kid. Quote, I discovered Friday the 13th in the pages of Famous Monsters magazine when I was 10 years old, and I have been thinking about this story ever since. End quote, he said in a statement. Mark Toberoff, I believe it is, Victor Miller, and Rob, this is little Barsamin. It's the text. I admit, I should have brought the text up a bit larger. But anyway, we'll also executive produce the show. Series details being kept under wraps for now. So, interesting stuff.
I think at first, when you hear when you hear a franchise like Friday the 13th and that it's going to be turned into a TV series, there's that bit of an apprehension. But like as soon as I read that opening statement, seeing A24's name attached to it, now I'm like, okay, you got my interest. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to know. No, you know, I don't need to know more, because I'm very curious to see with A24's stylized look to their films, which is very film-like, very raw. You know what I mean? Not over stylized, not over polished. I mean, when you go back to the first two Friday the Gritty, thank you. When you go back to the first two Friday the 13th films, that's what it is. It's not polished. It's not over stylized. It's straight to the point. It's kids in a camp getting killed. You know what I mean? Whereas when you look at, like, for example, the new Friday, the newer, you know, the one that came out like a decade ago, very polished. You know what I mean? So when I saw that, I'm like, this could have a very interesting look to it. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and I agree. And this is what I find, and I've been saying this on the channel now for a while. I'm not, you know, a Friday the 13th expert. Certainly I would probably consider myself a Halloween expert, but certainly not a Friday the 13th expert. But I grew up on Halloween, Friday the 13th, Elm Street, you know, all that. I mean, you know, you can't not grow up as a kid through the 1980s and not know a little something about Friday the 13th. And and I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. I really like the first 4 movies, and I've warmed to 5. I like 6, but I'm not as big on 6 as a lot of people are. But certainly anything after 6, I don't really care about.
I got to tell you, and I mean this, the more I'm watching 5, and tell me if this makes sense. The more I watch 5, I have more fun watching 5 than I do 6.
Right. Yeah.
Because 5 is just, it's entertaining. It's got great kills. It's entertaining. It doesn't take itself serious. It's everything on paper of what you want out of a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, and speaking of 5, I had the pleasure of working with Ron Sloan, who of course is Junior in Friday the 13th Part 5. He's in Dylan's New Nightmare, and we got a chance to work together. So very nice guy, really nice guy. Didn't talk about, you know, Friday the 13th, of course, because we were dialed in on Dylan's New Nightmare, but really nice man. Yeah, just really, really nice. So when it comes to Friday the 13th, I agree with the statement in principle that, you know, look, you know, and you've heard it for years now. How hard is it to make a Friday the 13th movie? It's just kids at a camp getting slaughtered. And I've said, yes, that's true. And ironically, that's the problem. And because it's not the 1980s anymore. And, you know, if you were to deliver a simple film, which they did in 2009, now they added that, but of course they added a bit of a story around it about this girl that goes missing and this guy that's, you know, searching for his sister. And they tried to kind of, you know, add a bit more substance to it. It wasn't just camps or kids at a camp getting killed. But I think because it's not the 1980s anymore, you know, that kind of thing, you might be able to get away with something like that as, like, you know, one movie, but you're not going to get a series like that. Like if you watch part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 of Friday the 13th, and even 6, I guess, but if you watch certainly the first 4, it is literally the same formula just recycled over and over again. You can't do that anymore. It's not the 1980s. No. You know, kids are not clamoring to just go to the theater and watch those kinds of movies. You can't do, maybe once, but you're not gonna get a series of films out of it. So what do you do, right? What do you do with Friday the 13th? Well, we've often talked about on this channel, you go back, right? You go back into the past to the untapped potential. And
right. Not to take credit, but we did talk. What would we do? A prequel, Mrs. Voorhees.
We did. We talked about that. We talked about that like 4 years ago. Right. And we were talking about how I think we were talking about it in a film format. I'm not sure if we were talking about it in terms of a series, but the principle is the same. We were like, no, you got to go back to Voorhees, go back before Jason drowned, go back and tell that story. There's untapped potential there. And of course, and understandably so, people were like, now we have no evidence that this is what Brian Fuller is going to do specifically, but it is being, it was announced as a prequel series. So we've often said, go back. People were saying, you can't do that. Jason's the brand. He's the franchise, the mask, the hockey mask. I get all that. But if you go back and you tell a really good story with really good characters with, and you're building and building, Jason's going to come, right? And you're building to that moment and you really flesh out that history that, that we've never seen really before about Jason and his mom and that dynamic and the father and where, what happened to the dad, and you build that up and then you watch her get the job at the camp and, become friends with the Christies and all that kind of stuff. I think there's, if it's really good and really scary, nobody's going to give a fuck. Nobody's going to care because they're going to get so lost in the characters. And now, before we go on, I should also say too, that it is my understanding, because Brian Fuller has come out and said this, I believe it was him, says that no, we have the rights to everything. Because as we know, there was the lawsuit between Cunningham and Victor Miller, right? And it was speculation when they announced this prequel series. Well, obviously they're doing a prequel series because, Fuller and A24 don't have the rights to do anything with hockey mask adult Jason because that's Sean S. Cunningham, right? Victor Miller has the rights to Pamela Voorhees and young Jason. But apparently, now I don't know all the legalities surrounding this, but my understanding, the Cliff Notes version, is that it's because this is streaming. This isn't theatrical release. This isn't movies. This isn't film. So from my understanding, they do have the rights to everything, to all of it. So
which opens the door for a lot of cool shit.
100%. So that communicates to me that, so it's very possible that we could see adult Jason hockey mask fucking tearing shit up.
Sackhead. We could get the sack back.
Sackhead for sure. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to get it right out of the gate because maybe they're going to go back.
Build up to it,
but you could build up to it, right? And that's fascinating to me because with streaming nowadays, I mean, if you have let's say 8 one-hour episodes, that's an 8-hour fucking movie. There's a lot of time for breathing room and character development and really to nurture the story and get people excited. I just don't, I think the future, and I don't know, I just don't know if the future of these old school franchises is really necessarily theatrical anymore. I mean, certainly you make a Friday the 13th movie with Jason tearing shit up and you add sex and boobs and camps in there, people are going to go see it. Yeah, sure. They're going to be people like us who are going to bring our kids. Of course, we don't have any kids, but you know what I mean? Guys our age are going to bring our kid. We're all going to go and people are going to, but I just don't see the long-term success of that because, we can do the same. You can't do it anymore. It's not the 80s. It's not the 80s. Anyway, I've gone off on my tangent. Tony, you've heard what I've had to say here. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, look, I mean, where do you want to begin? Because there's so much.
Well, let's talk about, first of all,
because I'm itching to talk about one particular person, but I don't know if we want to go there just yet.
Well, so we have no idea what this is going to be.
Right.
It is, I think, an informed guess, an informed opinion based on what we do know, which is it's a prequel series. So I think it is correct to assume that this will be about Pamela Voorhees. Correct. And her rise to Crystal Lake. And maybe we see her and Jason, their life, and what their life is like. And we see him in school and the bullying and all that kind of stuff. I'd be open to something like that.
Maybe Pamela was batshit crazy even before Jason drowned.
Maybe. Well, dude, I've thought about that too. I mean, think about that. Maybe there's some level of psychosis that runs in the family because, okay, your son drowns, and I know this is just a movie, folks. Your son drowns because the counselors weren't paying any attention. They were too busy, whatever she said, making love or whatever she said. Okay, I get that. but then you go off and murder everybody and continue to murder people. I mean, that's a, no, you would, like, in reality, if you were a normal person, you'd be devastated and upset, and you'd sue the camp, and you'd go to the police, and you'd sue the families. You wouldn't necessarily start murdering everybody. So what is it? Like, why, what is it about? Why did she do that? Did she snap? Was she always that way? You know what I mean? Like, this is cool shit, don't you think?
I agree. I think definitely coming out the gate, I think it would be very cool if you kind of already know something ain't right with her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not something triggered by the one event of her son drowning that just basically lit the fire, that turned into, this, shit show of her going on a tear. You know what I mean? But I think having shit leading up to it, however they want to approach it, I think will be really cool. And, with A24, they like that kind of stuff. They like adding layers to shit to a character. And I think that could be something very cool to do with Pamela Voorhees, rather than like, okay, son drowns, mom goes batshit crazy. Like, I think we can go a little deeper with that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think today, because it's 2022, I think audiences, I can't speak for everybody, but I kind of want that.
Layers, right?
Yeah. And it's not that I can't enjoy just an off the wall, fun brain fart gore. It's fun. But at the end of the day, I'm in my 40s now. I've seen that. If I want that, I'll just go watch Friday the 13th. Right. We've got that already. So if you're going to bring it back, well, what are you going to do? Like, you don't destroy the DNA. It's still got to feel like Friday the 13th. It's got to smell like Friday the 13th. It's got to look like Friday. It's got to taste like Friday. But what are you going to do that brings it into the 21st century? What are you going to do that brings it for modern audiences? A lot of people, and I get it, have this apprehension to remakes and stuff. I get all that. But it can be done right. You can, look what we did with Billy, look what Vince has done with Never Hike Alone and all that. You can, you don't destroy the DNA. You just have to, you gotta honor what's come before.
You gotta expand on the mythology. You gotta expand on it.
100%. You gotta honor what's come before, but you gotta put some more meat on the bone, or you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And Brian Fuller was the producer on, I believe, Hannibal, the TV series. And of course, Hannibal Lecter, that's a total deconstruction of somebody's psychological makeup, right? So he's insane. So I think we are going to see that. It would be a complete missed opportunity to just do kids, boobs, and sex at a camp with a TV series.
The opening scene is the kids having sex. Jason drowns. Mom goes crazy. Like,
like you have all this room and time,
right?
Like,
yeah. That almost should be like in the first season. That should almost be like a finale. Jason's drowning. You know what I mean? I wouldn't come out the gate with that. I would make the audience wait, make the payoff happen so that you have a full, 8 episodes, right?
Yep.
You have 7 episodes that are going to lead you up to that event. And like I said, you dive deep into this woman that we know very little about. Let's be real. The only thing we know about is her son drowned, and she went on a tear in the 50s, 57, 58, whatever year it was when she killed the kids. But then what the truck driver says to Annie in the opening of the first film, as they're driving up to Camp Crystal Lake, he talks about the fires. He talks about, the shit that was happening up there. Obviously, we are to assume that's Mrs. Voorhees creating the chaos up at Camp Crystal Lakes, and the reason why that people felt that the camp was jinxed. So it's, there's just so much there that you could do, that if you come out the gate with him drowning, kids having sex, it's like, okay, like you said, we've seen that in the first Friday the 13th film, been there, done that. Like, man, like, let's dive deeper. Who was this woman? And let's go there with it.
100%.
Maybe she does have a few kills beforehand. You know what I mean? And I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem. The way I would look at the drowning as that's basically now you've lit the torch and she's about to go on a fucking tear.
Yeah.
You had this like slow build up to that moment. And then season 2, it's just balls to the walls. Mrs. Voorhees going nuts.
I would have approached it the same way because, again, what I want to know too is this a prequel series to, and maybe this information is out there, but I don't believe it is. Is this like they're saying prequel, but that could just be a term that is being used loosely to describe that they're going back to tell the story of Pamela Voorhees. However, is this connected to the film series or is it its own thing? So basically what I'm saying is that streaming service series usually don't get any more than 4 or 5 seasons. So let's hypothetically go on that generality, right? We'll get, if it's really good, we're going to get 4 or 5 seasons out of it. Okay. So is that 4 or 5 seasons going to be all Pamela Voorhees leading up to the 1980 movie, or are they going to pretend the movie series doesn't exist?
Which is what I would do, to be honest with you.
Yes, same.
To eliminate my attachment and my commitment.
Correct.
Because that gives you so much more free reign.
Correct. And I would build it around, your first season, it's that backstory, Jason and Pamela, the deadbeat dad, what they're going through, what he goes through, what she goes through.
It doesn't even need to be that. You could simplify.
No, but I mean, I just mean that we see that. I don't mean the whole whole season is around that. I just mean that we see that take place, right? Maybe that's part of one of the first few episodes. But by the last episode, like episode 8 or 9 or what have you, I'm with you. Maybe she's introduced to the Christie. She gets a job at the camp as the cook. Do you know what I mean? Like we are introduced to that even, and you could see. There's 2 ways you could go. You could end season 1 with the drowning in preparation for season 2 to be the 1980 movie in TV form, or you end it with her getting the job at camp, at the camp, and then maybe season 2 is the ending of that. Although maybe you'd want to bring it in a bit faster. But the point I'm making is I agree with you. I think you see all that backstory. There's so much untapped potential with the character. You flesh it out a bit more. You make her a badass. And what I mean by badass, I don't mean like Sarah Connor badass. I mean you make Friday the 13th and horror fans really love that character, even more than they do now. And then season 2, who knows, is maybe like the Friday the 13th 1980 movie, right? And then your season 3 is like the part 2, or the season 4 is like the part 3, what have you. But you do your own thing. Like you don't mirror it and rhyme it completely, where it's like, oh, now we have to have the motorcycle gang and we have to have, we got to have, ooh, baby, ooh, baby. No. Do your own fucking thing. But you can tell that they're following the same beats. In terms of, we get here, there's the drowning, then Mrs. Voorhees goes crazy on the left, and then Jason comes back because he witnesses the death of the mother. Maybe Mrs. Voorhees doesn't die by a beheading on the beach, right? Maybe it's a different cool way that we go, oh, fuck yeah. It's not the beheading on the beach, but it's fucking awesome. Oh yeah. You make it your own, but you still make it Friday the 13th. I think you've got to do that. Because if you're not, then why are you doing it?
Right.
Sure. Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah. I probably would go right out the get-go. And establish it. You're at the camp already. If you're going to not commit to attaching yourself to part 1, even though it is a prequel, but prequel by definition doesn't necessarily mean it's a prequel to part 1. It's a backstory prequel to Mrs. Voorhees. That's all it is at this point.
Right.
So I would go from the get-go, but the way I would do it is I would have Jason just a little bit older, because you don't want to see children being killed, but you.
Well, I do.
But no, well, yeah, no. You and I both do. But teenagers. Okay, so what I was gonna say is that you could have it's summer camp, and Jason, he's an outcast, and maybe he's picked on. He's teased.
This is season 2.
Season 1,
right
from the get-go.
Okay,
because you obviously need to have kills in the first 7 episodes. You need to have people dying. You can't not have people dying.
Yes.
So you need a triggering point for you need something to trigger Mrs. Voorhees. So if I'm thinking like what would trigger a mother to do, Mrs. Voorhees goes into mama bear mode.
Right.
Okay. And she's seeing this happening to her son. The neglect by the counselors, but she's not totally taking it out on the counselors just yet because she works there. She's friends with the counselors. Okay. She's upset that the counselors are not doing anything to intervene what's happening to her kid, like whether he's being picked on and whatnot. So Mrs. Voorhees starts to take matters into her own hands. And you have these kids who are, children going to the camp, mysteriously dying. That look like accidents. You can set it up to where it looks like accidents so that no one is thinking that it's, that it's Mrs. Voorhees doing the killings. You get very creative on your kills so that the kills that do happen become now obviously, that would be a very bloody summer for camp if you had, several teenagers dying throughout the whole summer. But you got to figure out a way, how are you going to introduce kills to the TV series, and what's the triggering point? So I'm just kind of like throwing that out as an idea that she's pissed off at these kids doing this to her son, which ultimately lead to why Mrs. Voorhees turns on to the counselors is because of the ending. The counselor's not paying attention and Jason drowns. Now her sights are set on revenge to the counselors, not just the camp kids.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, true. There's so many different ways that you can go. And that's what's great about it, is that they're not beholden, to like, they're not tied to having to do a beat for beat remake or don't go overboard with fan service. It's fine to have a few little things in there, you can nod to, but I'm in agreement with you. Make it original. It's still it's got to feel like Friday the 13th. It's got to feel like that world, but open it up because, and with A24 producing, like you said, at the top of the show, they are a show.
Well, I said it. I would love to see A24 tackle Nightmare. I never thought they would attach themselves to Friday, and the fact that they did, I'm like, oh shit.
For sure. Okay. But like to your point, they are known for more of that, elevated horror, right? But horror movies with layers, psychological horror, and I think to. And again, that's not to say that the Friday the 13th series is going to be this deep, layered, cerebral show. I'm not saying that. But I think it has to be something a little more than kids and tits at a camp. It's got to be. I don't even think you're going to get,
like you said, to piggyback off what you said earlier about the modern day movie going audience and whatnot. I mean, if you notice in the recent Halloween films, I don't think there was any nudity. And I think you're seeing more, and which is fine. Women are standing up for themselves where they don't want to show their bodies on film. It's so I don't even think you would eaters again. Yeah. I don't think you're gonna see tits and ass in a Friday the 13th movie.
It's a very good point because of the climate. Yeah.
Today's actresses, it's not like they're standing up for themselves. They don't want to bear it, and I get it. Look, that's a lot to ask for a woman to do on screen, and even though it's a closed set or whatever, the world is still going to see it regardless. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And regardless of what you're getting paid for the day, that's still a lot. And I don't think you would get that nowadays.
For sure. Actors today, if there's nudity in a movie, they will, and rightly so, I totally get it. They would read the script, they would look at the script, and they would say to themselves, is this properly motivated? Is it integral that I show my breasts because, the scene, because it's a movie like 50 Shades. It's like, well,
that makes sense. It's the context of 50
exactly.
Shades. We know.
But is it necessary for me to show my boobs, here, like, no, I mean, we can, it's not necessary, right? And I agree with you. I think today a lot of women, and rightly so, are standing up for that, and
they should, and I 100%. I totally support that.
I've never cared about that. I couldn't care less whether there's nudity in a horror movie or not. I'm all about, as you know, the mood, the atmosphere, the the tension, the suspense. That's what I care about. I don't care if anybody's nude. Who fucking cares? I don't care. So,
and it's not the 80s anymore. The 80s,
it was
it was different. You know what I mean? Like, if we were doing this in the 80s right now and having this conversation, like if streaming was back then we would be saying, oh, shut have X amount of size, tits, and all this stuff, because that was the decade of decadence. It was the metal era, sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole that was the attitude of the 80s. So it fits today, 2022. That person that it just doesn't fit anymore.
It's a different.
And it's not trying to be prude. It's just reality.
It's a different time. We've matured as a society when it comes to that kind of thing. But if you want to watch that kind of thing, well, there's a whole slew of 80s B slasher movies with boobs galore.
there's
so
11
knock yourself
Friday
out.
the 13th films that have it.
right. So I'm in agreement there. I think this is, again, I'm not saying that this is going to be like The Witch, or Hereditary. I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but I do think because A24 is producing, it leads me to believe, because they have an identity that they've built for themselves. They have standards they've built for themselves. And I think that they probably see an opportunity here with the character of Pamela Voorhees to elevate it, if I could use that word, to a level of an interesting sort of look at the psychological makeup of this mother and child. And I think it has to be that. And I'm not saying it is, but I that is interesting. And if you mix that in with the horror and the slasher, and the blood and things like that, that's really cool to me. I'm in based on that idea alone. And but yeah, and there's, of course, the question comes down to who's going to play Pamela Voorhees. Well, that would depend on...
I don't even think that matters, to be honest with you. I think what matters is, like, when you take a look at the new Wednesday series, you need a name that's going to draw people to the show first, and you and I have become fans of Jenna Ortega even before Wednesday, before it became cool.
I said she was going to be a star when she was a nobody.
Absolutely. When she was a nobody, Dave was on the Jenna Ortega, and then I climbed on that train afterwards after seeing her in a few things. I'm like, this girl is carving out a great path for herself in the horror, scream queen, all that stuff. And now she's just, her popular is just, and I'm happy for her. I'm happy for the success of Wednesday. And I think it's great.
I still have to watch it.
But you need an anchor. You need someone to anchor. And I think
agree with that.
Getting into Pamela, I think you need a final girl that's going to get people to go, okay, you've got me hooked. Now I want to see it.
Well,
and that's where we were discussing who could be a good final girl to anchor this series.
Correct. But that would depend on when the final girl is needed, right? So, because if you're doing, like, if you're not at the campsite yet, and it depends on...
I think they're going to do the camp. I don't see them not doing the camp.
I think they're going to go back. I think they're going to go back, and we're going to see Pamela...
They'll go back, but it'll be camp in the 50s. That's what I mean.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, maybe. But I think we'll see a little bit before. Like, it wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe it'll be the fucking 70s. Shit, I don't know what decade they're going to do.
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise. Well, that's it too, right? Because
we're thinking it's still attached to the original.
That's it. Because
they may not do that, and they might go. We're going to do the 70s, which I'm like, hey, go for it.
Because if you're not behold to the film series, which I hope they're not, right? You're not doing a prequel series leading up to the 1980 movie, but maybe they will. Maybe they will. And if that is the case, then the time period matters. Then it will be a show that is probably set in the 50s or something like that, right? Because you want to tell the backstory and all that. But if they're like, no, this is our own version of Pamela and the backstory and all that kind of stuff, well, you could fucking set it in the 80s. I mean, the 80s is hot right now. Why don't you ride that Stranger things right into the fucking ground harder than it already has been. But you could, right? And it could be about Pamela and her son in the 80s at camp. I mean, who knows? I'm just saying that I think we're still I agree with you that I think we're gonna have that camp environment in that first season. But do
you know what makes the 50s better though? It's that wholesome old school Americana
100%,
vibe
100%. The nuclear family. It's before the 60s.
Right.
It's like we were talking about with that black and white Halloween idea.
Halloween, yes.
I agree with you. But I think
because if you do the 80s, you might have to throw some nudity in there just for the simple fact that's what the decade was.
Yeah.
That's why I started thinking like if they did the 70s or 80s.
It's a good point. It's interesting.
To be true to the decades. And we all know what it was like. So, but if you kept it in the 50s, you still got that wholesome Americana, everything, like you said, the nuclear family, everything is, malt chops and, Buddy Holly, right?
Right. I get you. No, that's a good point. But I still think whatever they do, we're going to see the beginnings of Jason and Pamela. So I don't mean, like Jason's birth. I don't mean that.
You don't mean like what Rob Zombie did with young Michael Myers, right?
No. I mean that, but we might be introduced to Jason and Pamela living in some seedy apartment, and Jason's like, 5.
Or even a small little house on the camp or on the lake.
Or, maybe, but I don't think the lake's going to be there yet. I think we're going to get to that in episode 3, or 4. I think we're going to be introduced to seeing them because who were they before the camp? Where were they before the camp? They didn't always live there. Where's their home, right? Does she live by? Maybe it does take place in the town, but maybe she lives down the road, right? It all depends on what's the end point? Where do we come in? What's episode 1, Crystal Lake, Pamela Voorhees, Jason? Where are we? And I think that we're going to be introduced to them before, and we're going to see the downfall, like she can't pay her rent and she's a single mother, or whatever the case is. And I'm not saying that's the whole season. I'm just saying that maybe that's like the first half of episode 1, and then she's got to move, and she moves to this little town, Crystal Lake, whatever. And then she meets some people there and she gets a job as the cook at the camp and, that kind of thing. I think we're going to see that. So that leads me to believe, when does a final girl, if there is one, get introduced? And maybe that's in episode 3 or 4. But either way, whoever she play or whatever her role is, I think we were talking about Sadie Sink
from Stranger Things
as a possible addition to the series.
She's on that Jenna Ortega trajectory. She's got The Whale coming out. She also did another independent film too that's gotten really good reviews. And Sadie Sink, she just seems to be on that same path, you can't say she can't hold a series down because she was season 4. She held season 4. She was the anchor of that season. And I think, the more you see this girl, in other stuff that she's doing, I think for sure, if you picked her and used her as a final girl, one, you're going to obviously get the Stranger Things fans, they're going to be interested in that. And it's a name everyone knows, like everyone knows who Jenna Ortega is. And, everyone knows who Sadie Sink is now, especially from, the popularity of season 4 and, The Whale is coming out, I think, was it now or in the next few weeks?
Something like that.
And something like that. So she's on a nice little run herself too. And I just think she's just got that, when you're thinking of a young final girl vibe, and depending on how old, well, first of all, she's 21, 22 years old. So she's at the right age of when this should be, of who to have as a final girl. And I think she would be perfect for it, as far as, giving us and how you introduce it. Like you said, it could be episode 2, it could be episode 3, it could be the first episode. You know what I mean? She could be packing her bags, going to the camp while, cut scenes of Mrs. Voorhees packing up her house because she has to get out because she's being evicted. You know what I mean? So you've got this, maybe Sadie Sink comes from that all Americana, nice family set in the 50s, right? And, oh, mom, dad, okay, daughter, have a great summer at the camp and da-da-da-da-da, all that stuff,
Jason's
right?
Jason's sister.
I wouldn't do that.
You could do anything.
I like, because I like the contrast of the two where like what you said, shit's hitting the fan for the Voorhees, and Pamela Voorhees is packing up and losing her place.
Yep.
Sadie Sink is introduced to us, whatever character she is. She comes for the perfect family, nice home. You know what I mean? So everything's going. So you got the two juxtapositions of falling apart. Everything is good. You know what I mean? Until their worlds eventually collide with each other.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Yep.
You know, and then Sadie Sink is obviously, she's a camp counselor. Mrs. Voorhees is the camp whatever cook. You know, and you go from there. Now, as far as casting Mrs. Voorhees, you know, you could go with someone who looked like Betsy Palmer at that age, you know, because there's a lot of pictures I've seen now recently surfacing around of Betsy Palmer in her 20s since this thing got announced. You know, so the casting people could use that as like a, you know, like a goal, or if, like what we've been saying, if you don't stick to the original movie and you're going to give yourself the freedom, then now at this point you can cast anyone. You know.
Well, I put up a picture on our thumbnail of Mia Goth.
Yeah, Mia Goth is another one.
And I put that up there because obviously she's hot right now as well because of X and Pearl and
they got a third one coming out.
They do, yeah. It's a sequel to X because Pearl was a prequel to X.
Right.
So, and I think it's set in the 80s or something, and she's in it as well. My only thing with that is I mean, in Pearl, I haven't seen it yet, but everything I've seen about it and heard about it, as she's terrific. She's apparently she gives a hell of a performance, but she gives a performance that is a psychological breakdown, you know, and so my only reservation would be, I don't want people to see Pearl. I want people to see Pamela Voorhees. Right. And, but that's in the writing. And that's how you create the character and how you build on that. But she certainly, because of her more rounder, cuter features, she definitely looks like she could be a Betsy Palmer type.
How old is Mia Goth?
Hey, Google. How old is Mia Goth?
Mia Goth is 29 years old.
So she's 29. Okay.
So there's about a eight year difference between her and Sadie Sink, which is still, that's not bad. You know what I mean?
No. And I think that sounds about right. You know, again, depending on what are you, like, are you following the timeline and the ages of the original canon? Do you have to do that? Or are you not doing that? I hope they're, like, I'm with you, man. I hope they're not following anything at all from the film.
No, I hope not
series,
either.
Because then Pamela can be any age you fucking want her to be. Jason
and
can be any
Jason
age
doesn't drown.
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he fucking
sees his mother get killed, and that's what sets him off.
Who knows? Like, I could see. Because that's really part of the lore. He probably is going to drown, but there's so many other things you could do, right? You know, maybe I don't know. Maybe Jesus, I don't know. There's a lot of things you could do, but I know because she's one that people are see right now, and because of her features, I can get that. I understand that. I think I would be okay with that. I would just want to really make sure that the part is very different from Pearl. And when Pamela begins to go nuts and go crazy, I don't think, oh, Pearl, when I should be thinking Pamela. That's the only thing that I think you got to get around that. But again, that's in the writing, you know, that's in how you create the character and what you have the actor do. So I know that Toni Collette is a popular choice among fans. I think she's in her 40s or something like that, but she's a.
But now you're basically remaking Friday the 13th.
Correct. You're
not doing a prequel. So Pamela's, you know, if you're going to do,
but what's your end point, right? Where is it? What's your end point? Like, that's all I'm saying, right? Like, there's
now if
many
you're doing
different...
if you're going to do future stuff too, and you want Toni to be the older version of Mrs. Voorhees, like, you know what I mean, like cut 2 shots to the future. That's a possibility, but I wouldn't do her. I wouldn't have her be the Mrs. Voorhees. No,
because she's too old. So you have to go
I do want some
younger.
breathing room with youth. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I agree, and that's why I think it would be great to see the beginnings of it. You know, we see, wow, Pamela is a single mom, deadbeat dad. Maybe the father's a fucking loser. And again, that's not the whole season. You're just introduced in that first episode where, you kind of lays the groundwork, and it's like, okay, wow, okay, this is the situation. And like I said, by maybe the end of episode 1, she's moving away. She's like, we got to get the fuck out of here. Moving away, can't pay rent. She sees a job opening at a camp. And she's like, okay, so we're going to do it. And she thinks it'd be perfect for Jason. Oh, he'd meet all sorts of friends and everything would be great. And she'll be the cook. And, oh, it's wonderful. Maybe she doesn't have to pay rent as long as she's the cook, or her rent is reduced if she's there's so many things you could add that we don't know about. We don't know any of this shit. We have
do you know what I
idea
would do, though?
Cool.
You know what I would do? If they do detach. Now, this is only if, keyword here, if they detach from the original franchise.
Right.
I would also do what Wednesday did very successfully with Christina Ricci, whatever, however pronounced Ricci, whatever. I would even consider bringing back some of the old guard, like Adrienne King and Amy Steele,
in like
different characters.
That would be nice. That would be nice. Little
they're
nod.
Part of the town. They're part of the town. They live, community, whatever.
Sure.
Maybe Mrs. Voorhees does kill both of them or something.
That'd be cool.
They're not playing the same characters. No, they're not playing.
They're not Ginny. They're not Alice.
No, they're just part of the old guard. They're, that would pique fans as well too. That we're bringing back some familiar faces that were fan favorites in the Friday the 13th franchise.
I would be surprised if they didn't at least attempt to do something like that. I think it would be cool. Like, imagine if, she rolls into town with her young son and she's getting set up in this little apartment that's not, it's a lot, she's there and she's getting ready for her day, the next day. And she goes to the local coffee shop around the corner, and the person working the cashier is, Amy Steele.
Right.
And she's like, oh, I know everybody's face here. You're new here. Whatever.
Maybe Amy Steele's running the show at the camp. She's the head counselor.
Maybe
you know
she
what I mean?
is.
Like,
maybe
you know what I mean? Like she's the
maybe
one.
She's Mrs. Christie.
Right. Exactly. She's organizing everything, making sure the young counselors are in check, and all that stuff like that. Like, I think that would, because like I said, I was torn on the idea of Christina, however pronounced Ricci, whatever. Yeah. I was torn on that because for me, she's my Wednesday. We were kids when the Addams Family movies came out. Yep. And that was my Wednesday. So I'm like, they're gonna bring her in and she's not playing Wednesday. I wasn't sure, but when I saw the series, I was like, okay, like this, I like what, and there's some, if you're fans of the 91, 93 movies, there's nods and Easter eggs throughout the series that I thought Burton did a very good job with, that it paid off very well. And you almost forget the fact that she was also Wednesday at one point, while Jenna Ortega's killing it in her performance as Wednesday. Right. So I think if Friday the 13th did that, it would be smart of them to do that. If they separate, we're not connecting to this, to the original franchise. We're going on our own. You bring back some familiar faces, new characters, because I think fans will really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's been such a distance now, right, between Ginny
and the original franchise,
right? Yeah, that I don't think people are gonna see. Now I know Amy Steele retired for I think she retired from acting a number of years ago.
She would come back,
but I think she would. Yeah, I think she would.
Absolutely.
I mean, it might depend on the role, and maybe she'd want it to be a small role. Maybe it's just a couple episodes. Who knows? But
2 days work or some shit. Yeah.
Who knows? But I think that would be nice for fans, for sure. Like, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to overpack your entire series.
No, I think
we're gonna get Amy Steele. We're gonna get Adrienne King. We're gonna get C.J. Graham. We're gonna get Kane Hodder. We're gonna get like whoa.
No,
because then it becomes distracting.
Right. Like Wednesday didn't bring back the entire movie cast. They brought back Christina, and that was it. So I think the two people you could get away with would be Adrienne King and Amy Steele. And I think that's it. Yeah, I don't think you go beyond that. If Amy Steele says no and Adrienne King says yeah, then you only bring back Adrienne King. That's it. I agree with you. Like you start bringing in this all-star like shit, like Kane Hodder.
The entire town is just Friday the 13th alum.
Right. No.
No, I agree.
But what I do want to see is I want to see a young crazy Ralph.
Yeah. Doom.
Maybe that's actually Jason's daddy.
Maybe it is. Oh, God, Ralph, crazy Ralph is Jason's daddy. What were you thinking, Pamela? I was drunk. I don't know what I was thinking. But there's a lot of different ways that you could go. Again, we don't know. All we know is that it's a prequel series, and what they're going to do. I mean, Brian Fuller has had a lot of success. A24 has had a lot of success. But I'm very curious, cautiously optimistic on what they're going to do. Is it going to be, are they not going to even care about the film series? Are they going to try and connect it? Are they going to, I just think connecting it just ties their arms. It really does. It limits them on the creative, things that they can do. Whereas if you disconnect yourself from it and you're starting back whatever, what I mean? Whatever decade you want to start in, I do think it still would be, I still would love to see it set in the 50s. Right.
I don't have a problem with that, but if they're going to go 70s, that's fine too. 60s, whatever. Got a feeling with today's political climate, I wouldn't be shocked if it was set in the 60s. I absolutely would not be shocked at all. Because that, Hollywood, they like to do that, find a way to get that message in their films one way or another. So I would not be surprised if the 60s turns out to be the decade that they go with. But if you detach yourself from the original franchise, man, it's just like the door is open with Jason. Like I said, you can bring Sackhead back. And you've got so much room for multiple seasons. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to focus on one hit, one and done season. I mean, my God, you just open the door for 5 or 6 seasons. You could have 2-3 of them be with Mrs. Voorhees and 2-3 of them with Jason.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. And
not saying they're going to do that, but I'm just saying you could, in theory, you give yourself that much, room to let the show breathe and grow for. I mean, look, come on, if Peacock is investing into this, there's no way they're looking at it as a one and done season. They're thinking like, hopefully this will be the future for them for, like maybe like this is like their Stranger Things or Wednesday, you know what I mean? Like where they want more than one season. So detaching themselves gives them that breathing room to guarantee it.
For sure.
Otherwise, I think you can only do maybe 2 at best.
No, I get
it.
I get it. And like I said earlier, I think I don't know what the stat exactly is, but generally speaking, successful streaming series, you usually find only getting anywhere between 4 to 6 seasons. I mean, I think,
right.
So it's not likely that even if it is really successful, that you're going to get like 10 seasons out of it.
No, those days I think are done with shows, right?
And the primary, I think so. And the primary reason, I'm not going to say the primary, I'll say, I think one of the reasons why really successful shows on streaming will only get 4 or 5 seasons is because of the media, because the medium allows you to really flesh out your stories. So you can tell your whole story within 4 or 5 seasons, and you don't need to go on anymore. Now, that's what's really cool about it, right? Is that because you're afforded, 8 episodes at an hour, 8 hours. I mean, Jesus, right? And then of course 8 times 5 is what? 8 times 5
40
is
hours.
Yeah.
That's 40.
40.
And if
8 times
they
5
did
is
6
40.
seasons, that's like freaking 48 hours. I mean, Jesus, man.
Right.
That's
so I mean,
lot.
Right.
That's a lot of Friday the 13th.
Where if you get like 3 movies, that's like maybe 5 hours. If they're 90 minutes, or 6 hours. Right. Right. So it's I think it's not that the seasons are like they're basically coming to their natural end point where they go, well, this is the end. Like there's no reason to push this on to a 6 or a 7 or an 8, because then we'd just be pushing it for the sake of pushing it. We were afforded all that time and all those hours to flesh out all these characters and all these storylines that we've now completed them. And it can be really good. Like I'm a huge proponent of stories having a natural end and coming to their natural conclusion. That doesn't mean you're always going to like it and it's always going to be the way you want it to end, but certainly I think that's something, you know, to think about. And because I just don't see this, going on and on and on and on. And I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something now. It's like, excuse me. Damn, I had lost my train of thought. But anyways, we were just talking about sort of the
well, you were talking about the seasons, and I was saying like what they you know, at best they can probably get away with, you know, 2 to 3 seasons with Mrs. Voorhees and probably easily another 2 to 3 seasons with Jason if they detach themselves. And I think that would be a smart thing to do, because it gives you, because if your primary focus on the first 2 to 3 seasons is with Mrs. Voorhees, there's still that anticipation that we as fans know Jason's coming.
Correct.
And then when you finally get, say, to maybe Crystal Lake season 4, how do you breathe fresh, you know, air into it after just having 3 great seasons with Mrs. Voorhees? Here's your boy, he's back.
That's
now
just
you've got
it.
a whole new run with Jason, and it brings back that excitement because now we're seeing Jason again.
Right.
So,
and I want to. No, you're bang on. And I want to say to people again, I'm speculating, but I think this is an informed guess, you know, based on who's involved.
It'd be a stupid missed opportunity if they didn't do it like that. Really, it would.
But if you are expecting or wanting just Friday the 13th, like we know, like, I mean, part 2 or 3 or 4, you know, in terms of just kids at a camp, boobs gonna get, it's not going to be that. The series, I'm not saying it's not going to have kills and death, and maybe you'll get bikini, maybe you will get some topless things. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm just simply saying that because the medium allows the filmmakers the breathing room to really nurture and develop story and arcs and characters with, you know, subplots and things like that, you're going to get a much richer Friday the 13th than you've ever seen before. And that's exciting. And I think it needs to go in that direction. It's not the 80s anymore, guys. It needs to go in that direction. That doesn't mean you're going to like it. That doesn't mean it's going to be successful. But I think they know that, yeah, we could make a Friday the 13th movie that's tits and ass and kids at a camp and people will go see it. But we can't make 5 of those movies anymore. You know, it's not 1985. We can't make 5 of those movies anymore. And so what are we going to do? Do we want to just make a one and done movie where that's what we do? Or do we want to really kind of make something really cool here and expand on the lore and the mythology and make you appreciate Friday the 13th from a perspective you've never thought about before or you've never seen before? Everybody can bitch and complain, but if it's really good and it's casted really well, nobody's going to give a fuck. And everybody that was like, no, it's going to go, yeah, it's amazing. Did you see it? It's fucking awesome. It's just, that's what happens. Everybody bitches and complains, and then it ends up being good, and then you're like, it's amazing. Of course, there's always going to be those guys out there that are like, that just hate for the sake of hating because they're, you know, they can't not hate, right? But I'm all for it. Like I'm all for it. I think this is probably, and I'm not saying that you completely abandon Friday the 13th theatrical releases. I'm not saying they're not possible. I'm just saying that the identity of what a Friday the 13th movie is will have to evolve beyond just camp kids tits. Like, I mean, it's got to go beyond that.
To piggyback off of what you're saying in regards to the people who want to see the traditional Friday the 13th and whatnot, whether it's in the theaters and shit. I mean, it's just, I don't think, I mean, yes, is it going to bring the horror fans? Sure, it'll bring the horror fans to see it. But look, money talks. Okay, 2009, no one went and saw the fucking movie.
Well, they did the first weekend, but then the second weekend they didn't.
But that's what I'm saying. And
I think it had like an 89% drop or something.
So, you know, I just don't. Yes, will Friday the 13th, the hardcore fans go and support the movie? Absolutely. But I just think the movie making business, because people forget it's a fucking business. It's not. And it's changing fast. We're actually seeing it change in real time. I think streaming is becoming more the thing, and I think movie theaters in 20 years or less, it's going to be different. It's not going to be like it once was. You may have, we may be saying like, there's only one theater in town now. Where, in fact, when I first moved to this area where I live outside of Atlanta, there was 7 movie theaters. I'm down to 3. 4 of them have closed.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like close, like they're gone. They're done. That's it. So we're down to, we started with 7 and I just think that people aren't going to the theaters as much anymore. I don't. I mean, the last one I saw in theaters was Spider-Man, and that's a year ago now. So like I'm not someone who goes to the theaters that much. Even though I love movies, I'll either wait to see it when it comes out, or hopefully it's like Halloween Kills or Ends. I mean, I'm sorry. It came out on streaming on Peacock. I got to watch it on Peacock. I'm more of a fan of sitting in my home, comfy chair.
You're not alone. A lot of people are like that.
Eating my bag of fucking Cheetos in my boxer shorts and watching a freaking movie. I know you like the movie experience, and I know there's a lot of people who still
I do. But I can be at home too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I like the movie theater experience when it's a movie that requires the movie theater experience, like Avatar or, Indiana Jones or, something
even
like
Avatar,
that.
man, the way they're talking with the numbers with that, it's under projecting. So like, but my point is that if you want to see Friday the 13th in the movie theaters, you can't just go opening weekend and let it have a successful one weekend and then expect that they're going to continue to do that formula. No, they're in business. You have to keep going. You need to make a good product that people want to go and pay to see.
Right.
One weekend doesn't mean shit. Yeah, you had a great opening weekend. Congratulations. Then you sank like the fucking Titanic next weekend.
Yeah, it did. It had one of the biggest drops of all time. It was above 80%. It was insane. But the thing,
you can't do that anymore.
And the thing is too, is I've said this many times, because we're in such a horror bubble, we often think that everybody, there's a general movie-going audience that is the real target. The studios and the marketing, yes, marketing obviously is for us too. But at the end of the day, most marketing is for the general movie-going audience, because we're going to be there no matter what. They could never release a Halloween trailer at all, and we'd still be there. And they know that. So the trailers and the marketing are designed for the general movie-going audience. That's why you see a lot in trailers. Why'd they show that? Because you're not the target. Dave McRae is not the target. Tony Michael's not the target. It's Billy Bob, who's working down the street, who's a casual fan, who's searching for something to see on Halloween, and they see, and he's like, well, I want to go see that. You know what I mean? That's who it's for. It's the general movie-going audience, and they are the vast majority of the population. And so, Friday the 13th is the same. It's the same thing.
I don't know what it's like for you up there, but if you were to take your girl to I know if I were to take mine to the fucking theaters, it's like $100 out of my pocket just for 2 people, like for tickets, fucking popcorn and soda.
You can spend that much. Yeah, you can spend that much.
It's insane with what between ticket prices and I don't need to preach to everyone else. We all know we're all in the same boat together with inflation and what we're paying in the grocery stores and stuff like that. Like you ultimately end up deciding like, okay, do I want to put food on the table or do I want to go to a movie? No, I want to put food on the table. So, something's got to give. If you want to see a rejuvenation of the movie theaters again and people going back to the movie, something's got to give. I don't know what that something is, but I just don't see it happening. I think people like me love the convenience of being able to stream it at home, relax, chill out, make my own popcorn, whatever, and enjoy the movies. Because that's the other thing too. I mean, I know you had a thing because you've shared the story a couple times since doing the show. I don't remember it off the top of my head, so I'll let you tell it in a second. But going to the movies today isn't like when you and I were kids going to the movies, where you might have one rowdy person that kind of annoys you, but overall everyone's been respectful. Nowadays you just get nothing but bratty fucking spoiled kids who want to sit there on their fucking phones, texting, chatting, and whatever, updating their social media to let the world know that, hey, I'm watching this movie right now, instead of actually watching the movie, and making the experience even worse because you're trying to watch a movie that you just paid $100 to go see, and this fucking spoiled brat over here is on their fucking phone being disrespectful. And it's, it started off with one. Next thing you know, you got this pocketed groups over here, pocketed group over here.
That's because back in our day, there were no phones.
There was no phones, and we were respectful. And
right.
now it's just like, I'm like, fuck this, man. I don't want to deal with it. I'm not going to drop that kind of money.
And you're not the only one that feels that way. There's lots of people that feel that way. And look, the bottom line here is that I think for Friday the 13th, Elm Street's different because I can't say it's completely different, but it's a little bit different than Friday the 13th because Elm Street always sat in the cerebral sort of world of dreams and the subconscious and things like that. Now, obviously it was still 80s B-movie slasher, and that was, the big part of it. But to modernize Elm Street and to make it a little more mature and a little more sort of like, ooh, this is about dreams, it probably wouldn't feel as jarring as maybe what I think they need to do with Friday the 13th. And I'm not saying that you do a 180 on Friday the 13th, but I think for Friday the 13th to continue to exist and be successful in the future, it has to be more than what it was in the 80s. That's what Tony and I are saying. That doesn't mean,
and that's why I think streaming is fucking great. I love that I'm going to be able to sit here and be like,
I do too, because it gives you and it affords the filmmakers and the writers the time to flesh out all those nuances and details, to get you emotionally attached to the characters and the stories and the arcs, and to get you dialed in and locked into what's going on. A 90-minute movie, it's very difficult to do that, so yeah, I'm all for it. Like I don't know what they're going to do and how far back they're going to go, or what's going to be canon, what's not going to be canon, who's going to be cast, who's not going to be cast. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with it. And I think this will definitely, I think Malika Akkad will be watching very closely. I think the Craven estate will be watching very closely.
Sure.
On what, what happens with Crystal Lake. If Crystal Lake is a bona fide success, I mean downright spectacular, then you may see a Halloween series. You may see
that doesn't mean a Halloween series. Michael Myers series.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. But in Hollywood, as I've said many times on this channel, because it is a business and they follow the patterns, and they will
I want a Danielle Harris Halloween series on Peacock.
Oh, totally. But they follow patterns and they follow what works, what's making money, what doesn't. As soon as something isn't, and this is the downside of the the motion picture / television industry. The downside of this business is, on that perspective, is as soon as something is not working anymore, as soon as something is no longer receiving ratings, as soon as nobody is interested in that something anymore, they drop it like that. And they don't care if the arcs are not complete. They don't care if the stories are unfinished. They don't care about your emotional attachment to the fucking thing at all. If nobody's watching, done. It's done. I mean, sometimes you'll get one more season if the studio or the network is nice and they want to be able to wrap up any loose ends. But that rarely happens. It happened to Manifest. It was just dropped and canceled. Then Netflix picked it up and went, okay. But what's happening with that doesn't usually happen. Usually it's just, nobody's watching, done. But for the people who were watching, who were emotionally invested, it's like, you just canceled it. But what's gonna happen to Bob? What's gonna happen to Jim? What's gonna happen to that guy? I'll never know. And it's really frustrating. So they will follow trends and patterns until it no longer works.
Oh, what was that show? That same thing happened. Oh, Lucifer. That happened to this to the TV show Lucifer. Okay. I think it was on Fox for like 3 seasons. Someone in the chat room, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have my chat open, so I can't see it because I'm trying to make sure there's no interference. But if I'm wrong on this, I think it was 3 seasons. Then Netflix came in, picked it up, and brought it in for a couple of seasons as well too.
It can happen. See, today's day and age, if a show gets canceled on a network, sometimes there's always that hope that maybe a streaming service might pick it up. But for every show that a streaming service picks up, there's tons of shows they do not. So it's just the reality. They will follow the trends of what's working. When Halloween 18 worked, that's why you got Child's Play. That's why you got Candyman.
Scream.
That's why you got Scream. That's why, they will follow it. They will follow it until it works. And then the second...
And the only reason why we didn't get Friday or Nightmares because they were held up in litigation.
Well, the Friday was. The Nightmare, the rights are gone back to the Craven estate, and I guess they're just looking for the right...
anything.
Yeah, they're looking for the right sort of fit. But this is interesting with Friday the 13th. So I can 100% that Malick, I mean, he's probably already got some things up his sleeve. He's probably already had some talks with people, I would imagine. But with this announcement, I guarantee you he'll be watching it closely. If nothing between, now and the time it comes out happens.
Truthfully, my gut feeling is that I think if Friday is successful, I would not, although I don't want it to happen. I would not be surprised if Malick does a Halloween series with Michael, just simply for the fact to try to get the bad taste out of people's mouths for the way it ends finished.
I could see it. I could see it being...
I would not be shocked. I mean, I'd rather see the season of the witch in that type of stuff. But if they announced it after the Friday comes out and it's like huge and all successful, like you said, I would not be shocked within like a short period of time if Malick, he announces we're bringing Michael back and it's in a series.
It's always possible. You never know. You never know. I think that is probably the future for. Again, theatrical release is like I'm a huge proponent of the theatrical release and experience, but because that experience has been exhausted with these characters, I often wonder, you either have to wait a really long time, or if you want these characters to come back sooner than later, streaming might be where it's at because again, it affords you all that time to flesh things out, and see these characters and stories from a perspective that maybe you've never seen before.
Right. I think just for the simple fact that Halloween fans, obviously the core base base would love to see the season of the witch. They would love to see the season of the witch anthology.
Yeah, it's untapped potential. Yeah.
So, but as far as just as in this case with streaming, when I say moneymaker, views, okay, that they heavily rely on their views. I mean, you need the brand, you need the face, you need Michael. You know what I mean? So that's why I think Malick. I think he's.
People say the same thing about Jason.
Yeah, but see, with Pamela Voorhees, I think it's different. You know what I mean? Whereas, like with Halloween, I'm not saying they can't get to a season of the witch streaming part. You know what I mean? Like, and eventually go off into that. If Halloween does jump into the streaming service, I think they'll start with Michael and then get into the. I would not be surprised. Where they start, I don't know.
I think streaming is ripe for Elm Street.
Oh, big time.
I don't know what you do with it. I don't know what you do with it, but sorry, there's something in my throat there. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. I mean, I don't know who you'd get to play Fred. Me. I don't. Sorry, something in my throat there.
Something in your throat.
But I do think there is again because especially with Elm Street, because of the dreams and all that time you have to flesh characters out and arcs and situations and tell the story of Fred Krueger and building. I think it's again, it doesn't mean it's going to be good automatically. The writing has to be on point, the performances have to be on point, the casting's got to be really good, everything's got to be firing on all cylinders. But I think there is something to be said for that. I will watch with great curiosity with Friday the 13th, because I think I speak for a lot of people when I say I don't think any of us expected Friday the 13th to be announced as a series.
No.
So this is Elm Street. We would have been like, oh, that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? But
Halloween, whatever they do, okay, yeah.
Because we just came from the movies, Halloween series, Season of the Witch, you're like, oh, that makes sense. We just had 3 movies with Mike. Makes sense. Maybe they want to do that. Friday the 13th? But it makes sense to me when I break it down like I did at the top of the show. But I was surprised. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out and where it goes and who gets cast and all that kind of shit. But we should probably jump over to the chat room and see what everybody is saying. If you what's going on. And but yeah, if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let Tony and I know your thoughts on the Crystal Lake series. Of course, there's not that much, I guess your speculative thoughts, your speculation in regards to the new series. Let us know in the comment section below. And I think a couple of super chats came in, so let me just get those while I'm on it here. Let me see. Just a couple. Yeah, just two. Two came in. But now is the time to send super chats in if you were planning on doing it. Tales from the Shelf. I love that. Sends in $4.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, if given the chance to do an official feature-length Black Christmas film, would you tell the story of It's Me, Billy, or go in a different direction? I would probably, if a studio came to Bruce and I and said, we love what you've done with this, it's entirely possible that they might just pick it up and distribute what we did, because obviously, the quality in terms of the production value and all that kind of stuff, you could do that. You could totally do that. Or they may say, hey, we love what you've done, but would you be willing to kind of do it again? And we'll give you more money. Like we'll give you like a $5 million budget, which will help with a lot of things and, to flesh things out more and all that kind of stuff, which probably is more the case.
Would you keep the same cast?
I would try. Absolutely. I would try. Again, I mean, it might be out of my hands, it depends.
That's true.
It depends on what they want, but certainly I would try. They may want a name attached, like, well, I'll get you, it's gotta be Ortega, I mean, they may want to go down that route. But that being said, I would fight for the general sort of footprint of the story that we've told, because I think, it's Black Christmas. This isn't Friday. This isn't Halloween. This isn't Elm Street. There's only so much you can do. There's a reason why we're doing chapter 1 and there's a reason why we're doing chapter 2 and ending our story and not doing a chapter 3, 4, 5. Like you can't do that. It doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't lend itself. The story of Black Christmas and Billy doesn't lend itself to multiple installments without sacrificing and ruining the integrity of the mystique and the mystery of Billy and Black Christmas and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully, like I said, everybody will come out and support the Indiegogo campaign when it launches next year. I'm counting on you guys. And if we can raise the funds and we can complete chapter 2, you will have a sort of an official, I mean, it's in 2 parts, but when you put them together, obviously it's its own thing as well. So, but I would keep sort of what we've done with chapter 1 and what we're about to do with chapter 2. I would try to fight for that because I think it makes sense. And I think it's just a logical progression of what you would do. So yeah, I would definitely take those phone calls. Let's just say that. I would definitely take those phone calls. Thanks, buddy. Unimpressive Media sends in €5 and says, it is dependent on what age they want to look at Pamela from. That's true. We were just talking about that, but I think Toni Collette would be a great Mrs. Voorhees for this show. She would be if they're doing older Pamela, as Tony said. Correct. Right? But Tony and I think they're going to go younger. It makes the most sense, I think, because I think they're going to want to tell the story of... Gives you more flexibility. You can go back to to show Jason as a little boy alive and all that kind of stuff. So that's what
and you don't, and if they do detach them from the original run, we don't necessarily need to see Mrs. Voorhees get older. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Maybe she dies early to mid 30s or whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not in her 40s. So
that's it.
There's a lot of room that they could do. Like you said, she may not be decapitated. It could be something else this time around.
Could be something else.
Who knows?
That's it. Yeah. Gary R sends in $5, says, if you had broke your index finger that the Freddy glove goes on, would it have stalled production or stop altogether, or would you work around it? If I'd broken my index finger, it depends how bad. Well, I mean, I would have. It depends.
David
I don't know.
Be like,
depends.
Walk it off. Let's go.
I don't know. I broke my tooth, for those of you that don't know, while we were shooting, and of course, it worked for the character. I don't know, Gary. I'm not really sure. It depends how much flexibility I had, and whether or not maybe we were injecting me with all sorts of like, I don't know, like shots or icing it, or I have no idea.
Shit. If I was directing it, I'd look at, if Dave died, I'd pull some Captain America. I'd pull some Captain America.
Weekend at Mr. Bernie's?
No, I'd pull like what Captain America said. If you die, walk it off.
That's it. If you die, just walk it off. I like that line. I like that line. If you die, walk it off.
Walk it off.
I like that. That's good. Know? That's good.
I forgot what, he says it in one of the Avengers movie or some shit. So
that's good.
It's like, yeah, if you die, walk it off. Come on. Shit,
just walk it off. Walk it off.
That's it.
That's all you got to do. Let's see here. Cody Snyder says, I take Kevin Bacon as Ralph. That would be interesting. Kevin Bacon as Ralph.
I think he's older now than even when Ralph, the guy who played
Ralph.
He
might have been. He might be.
He might be now. I'm saying Kevin Bacon now might be older than the guy who played Ralph in the original movies.
Right. Yeah. No, he might be. Yeah, I don't know if I'd put him as Ralph.
To go young. If Pam is young, Ralph needs to be younger. Not saying as young, but
how
younger.
Old was he? Let's see here. Because everybody,
you got to figure if Pamela Voorhees is what, 40s in Friday, right? Is that correct?
I think she's in her 50s, I think.
Or 50s. Okay, so you got to figure Ralph is, if not
in
the same, in the same
60s.
age.
So he might be the same age.
They're close. They're close.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got to figure they're close in age.
So Walt Gorney, oh no, he was quite old. He was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 69, 68. He was 68. He was 68.
He was almost 70 doing Friday?
Yeah, he was 68.
I'll tell you this, he looked great for his age then. Mm-hmm. I mean, really. Knowing that and knowing the movie, he looked, for 68, he looked fucking great.
And he lived until March 5th, 2004. He was born in 1912, lived to 2004, died at the age of 91. Can you imagine if he was around today? He'd be at cons signing, "You're all doomed."
Love it. People would love it.
You're all doomed. He'd write the word doomed so many times.
I didn't realize he was that fucking old. Holy shit. Mm-hmm. So I guess, yeah.
Kevin Bacon is like 64. So yeah.
The problem is, so if you're going to do Bacon, then you would have to, Pamela would have to be older, obviously.
Right.
So if Pamela is in her late 20s, early 30s for this new series, the way we're thinking it, then Ralph should be somewhere in his mid to late 40s, maybe pushing 50. Wow, 68. Good for you, buddy. I didn't realize.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I get that. Because if I see what you're saying. No, Tony is right. If you go back and you tell, which I think is what they're going to do, but who knows? And let's say hypothetically, let's say Mia Goth is Pamela, and you tell, and we watch her get the job at the camp and all that. Well, Crazy Ralph is not going to be in his 60s, right?
No,
he's going to be, but then again,
40s.
Maybe you do whatever you want because you're not. Maybe he is. Maybe he still is an older guy. I don't know.
Do you think Bacon would even want to be attached to? I mean, he's always seemed to shy away from this particular movie. I know he's opened up a little bit about it in recent years, but he's really shied away from Friday.
I think there's a better chance now than there's ever been, and because I think actors, when they are hot and in demand and working a lot, and don't get me wrong, Kevin Bacon is still working a lot, but I'm just saying there are certain actors that when they're in demand and they're working a lot, they don't want to get typecast. So they don't want to get too much they don't want to get involved too much in one thing or one genre or only be known for one thing. So they kind of want to keep their options open. They kind of want to just steer clear of certain things. But depending on how your career goes, and again, Kevin Bacon is a little bit of an exception because he is still a bona fide Hollywood star who's working on a regular basis. I'm not saying he's as in demand as he was 30 years ago.
Didn't he do a horror movie this past October?
He did. They, them. Yeah, it's a very woke horror movie. But I think as actors get older and they become less and less in demand, and their careers are waning, they tend to look back more favorably on certain things, and they soften a bit, and maybe you're like, you know what, because the pressure is off now. They're not in that game of trying to make a name for themselves or trying to solidify their legacy or trying to keep. It's already done. It's done, locked, signed, sealed. Kevin Bacon's legacy is done. He doesn't have to. He could do a Friday the 13th movie, and it's not going to take away from Footloose or everything else he's done, Tremors. I mean, all the wonderful things he's done. But early on in his career, when he was doing those films, he's still making that name. And a lot of actors are like this. He's not the only one. But as you get older, it's kind of like, yeah, sure. Why not? I'm not fighting that fight anymore. I'm good now. It's not going to hinder me. It's not going to prevent me from getting another role. Sure. Why not? So I'm not saying he would, but I think now there's more of a chance that he would do something related to Friday the 13th than I think there's ever been. So whether that's just a cameo as a guy at a gas station, whether it's Crazy Ralph, or who knows, I don't know. But I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be fun. Yeah. Mad Mars sends in $5. Thanks, buddy. Says, do you know why American shows have English accent commentator and usually a British show has an American commentator? Do they switch? What shows are you talking about, Mad Mars? You have to be more specific.
Yeah, give me an example. I don't know what you're talking
about. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Gary R sends in $5. Says, I met Robert Englund at a con a couple years ago. You are definitely taller or the same height as Robert. I don't think I'm taller than Robert. I think I would be either the same height or maybe a smidgy bit smaller. I'm 5'8". Robert, I think, is like 5'9", maybe 5'10". He's not 6 foot, I can tell you that. And
I'll tell you what, because Jensen Ackles, okay, who's on the TV show Supernatural, he was also in season 4 of Smallville. Robert Englund did a guest spot on Supernatural, and Jensen Ackles is 6 foot. He's right. He's 6 feet. He's a couple inches shorter than the taller one on that show. Yeah. Jared
Padalecki or
something like that.
Yeah.
And in the scene, Robert is playing off of with Jensen. Jensen's fucking towering over him, and I'm like, think, man, Jensen didn't strike me as that big of a guy because. I mean, yeah, standing next to Tom Welling in Smallville, Tom Welling's, 6'2", 6'3", whatever. And next to his, brother on Supernatural, that dude's about 6'3". So yeah, but I always thought Jensen was in that 6 foot range. So when I saw him playing off of Robert, I was like, Robert ain't as tall as I thought he was. He's a lot shorter than I thought he was.
Yeah, no, I've always known that about Robert. I think, like I said, I'm 5'8". I'm not going to go as far as say he's 5'8". I'm going to say maybe he's 5'9" or 10.
I was going to say 5'9". That seems, based something on like what I'm seeing on screen between him and something Jensen, like 5'9" would be accurate.
But you put me in boots, obviously I was wearing, boots to play Freddy, right? And they had a bit of a heel on them. So it probably got me to like 5'8.5" or, whatever it was. I mean, I have a similar build to Robert. Robert has broader shoulders than I did or do. But in terms of like
maybe he did a Wilbur and wore some shoulder pads.
No, well, there's one shot. There's one shot in the original Elm Street where, and he's got a different hat on as well. It's when Nancy, or is it Tina? It's either Nancy or Tina, I think it's Nancy, when she's in the boiler room and she looks and she sees Freddy come out from around the corner, and he's got a well, it's not even a fedora. He's got a hat on, but it's like straight. It's like it's not the hat that he has for the rest of the movie. And when he comes around that corner, I'm almost certain he's got a little bit of shoulder something going on there, but you don't see it for the rest of the movie or the rest of the series. Just that one shot. Elm Street fans probably know what I'm talking about, but I would say that so I'm similar to Robert, not exactly, but when you see me in Dylan's New Nightmare, I can, in terms of the way I look and the body and things like that, I can play it flawlessly. Like there's a because I'm 152 pounds or whatever I am, 5'8". So I have that svelte early Robert, not necessarily, what he is now, because obviously he's older and he's a bit heavier, but certainly, back in the 80s, I have that look. So, yeah. But I think I'd go as far as say, I think he's probably a little bit taller than me, but I don't know. I have no idea. Okay. Did I get all the super chats so far? I think I did. I think I got them.
You got people being impatient in the chat room because you decided to read the super chat first and not answer their questions.
Oh no, was there?
Even though we've only been answering questions for about like 10 minutes now, and
was there somebody that said that? Okay, well maybe they're new. Okay, so it's important if you're new to my channel, you have to understand I will always answer the super chat questions first, and the reason for that is because people have paid money to have their question answered. So they always come first. It's not personal. I don't know you guys, right? I don't know you. I'm not going around your question on purpose because I don't like you or something, or because it's personal. It's because I have to answer the super chat questions first. That's the way it goes, right? You know, people have paid. It's the least I can do. I've got to do that.
Let's be real. It's because they fucking suck.
Okay. All right. It's because you fucking suck. It's because you fucking suck. No.
Loser.
No. And also,
we're kidding.
Also remember too, if I do not answer your question because there's a lot of them, or I didn't see it, or the chat room's going by. I mean, there's 180 people in the chat room right now. It's not personal either. Please know that. Okay. There will always be another opportunity the next time I'm live. So just know that. All right. Let me see here. Go
ahead, ask the question, folks.
Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave and Tony, question for both of you guys. Who would you like to have do the music for the Crystal Lake series on Peacock? Fred Mullen or Harry Manfredini? How you guys doing? Doing good, Chester. I don't think it matters.
No, I wouldn't mind if they brought back that original Manfredini soundscape. You know what I mean? Like that soundscape that you get in the first two Friday films. That's what I'm hoping they bring back. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they definitely went away from that as the series progressed, which I think, you know, what Harry had set up in the first two films really was the identity of the movies.
Yeah, that's you're talking about the bum.
All of it, like everything, you know, even just the soundscapes throughout the film, you know what I mean? Just the different sounds that he did throughout the entire movie, because he didn't really theme it like Carpenter did.
No.
Carpenter has themes in Halloween, like the Shaped Stalks, Laurie's theme, the Myers theme, all that stuff, Myers House theme, all that stuff, and then obviously the theme itself.
Yeah.
What Manfredini did is he added a character soundscape to the first two films that it just kind of got away from it as the series progressed. So I'm hoping that maybe they focus on the first two films, what those soundscapes were like, and that's the identity of the sound that we hear. That's what I'm hoping. It doesn't have to be Harry Manfredini to do that, but if he did it, that's cool. That's just a nice little, you know.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and yeah, no, that that soundtrack that, you know, or ding 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 ding, you know, the ding 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 ding, or, you know, whatever it was, or the or ch as it sounds, that was very prominent in the first, I say, 4 films. Yeah. Like right to the final chapter. Once you get certainly once you get to 6 and 7 and 8, you don't even hear that anymore. Like you hear versions of like you hear it, but you don't. You don't have that Manfredini, or is it Manfredini? Whatever. Harry, my man. You don't have that. So I don't know if they would go back to that, like just outright, or if they would have bits of it. You know, maybe like musical cues, musical triggers. You know, when like something happens, you hear something, and the audience is like, oh, I know what that means. You know what I mean? Like something maybe like that, you know, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I'm open to, you know, I mean, as long as the soundtrack is good, then, you know, I think it's all right.
Yeah.
I think it's all right.
I think I offended someone.
Oh no, did you? Oh no. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, they said I didn't have the right attitude, and how easily that guy referring to me said that you guys suck, you're losers, and then said I'm kidding, and it's a truly pathetic comment. Okay, you're right. Here's my apology.
Yeah. Let's not take it so seriously, guys. Who is that? This is
if you're expecting an apology
Nupar
from me,
Motion Vintage Films. That's not the right actor. Like I said, I'm kidding. Truly pathetic comment. Maybe he's talking about himself being a truly pathetic comment. I'm not sure. But just you know, whatever. I couldn't care less. You're watching this for free, so shut up and eat your popcorn, as Christopher Nelson would say. Geeked Out Turtle Fan 42 says, Dave, how about tying in Crazy Ralph and why he went crazy? Ooh, maybe Pamela went nuts and killed his family for suspecting that she was murdering people pre-Jason's drowning. That's interesting. I kind of, you know, maybe like tying Ralph into the lore somewhere or something. Or maybe you find out that maybe Crazy Ralph is like, I don't know, maybe Pamela's father? Ooh. That would be Jason's grandfather.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, like, see, I like the
you
fact
could do that if
they
you're not tied to film canon.
Right, that's it. If you're not tied to film canon, I like it. Mm-hmm. It's a cool idea to play with. Absolutely. I like that idea. You got some room there.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Edward Nito sends in a $10 super chat. Thank you, Edward. Says, hey, D&T, hope you guys are doing well. Do you guys have 3 favorite scenes from the original Friday series? 3 favorite scenes? Well,
in the first Friday, right? That's what he's talking about?
The first Friday series. So like the original...
so like
3 favorite scenes from the original Friday series.
Okay.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
I can tell you, right off the bat, number 1 is when Jason pops up for the bed for the first time in part 2 and you see him with the knife in his hand. That's such a great scene. And then Mark in the wheelchair, his death. That's my favorite death. That's my favorite kill.
Yeah, the wheelchair goes backward down the
backwards. Yeah, and you almost got that like Hitchcock type zoom in effect or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool too. But Jason popping up and seeing him in the sack is a great moment in that. And then
yeah.
Because all of them for me are going to be in part 2.
Okay, I love that kill that you're talking about. I love part 3 when he first gets the mask and he's walking along the dock there and the girl's like, hey, who are you? Whatever. And he just casually holds up the spear and, you know, and he just kind of saunters off. It's just because that's the first time who knew that moment, that mask, that was the birth of one of the most iconic symbols of horror. You know, true. I mean, that's cool. So, I mean, there's so many, but so there's that. That's 2 for me. I'm
trying to think of something besides from part 2. Man, Mark's death is definitely up there for sure.
Oh, I like from part 1 when what's her face? She passed away. I always forget her name in the actual movie. She's in bed and she's alone and it's raining outside and you hear, help me. Help me.
That's a great scene too. I was going to say like, Kevin Bacon's kill also was pretty iconic.
Great. Did he say kill or scenes? I think he said scenes.
I mean, it's a scene. I mean, it technically is a scene.
Yeah, 3 favorite scenes. Okay, yeah. That's fine. Yep. So that would, I mean, there's so many that I could do, but off the top of my head, first introduction to the mask, the kill, the guy down the stairs in the wheelchair, and help me, mommy. Oh, fuck. That's just, because imagine being alone at a camp. There's no kids there. You're alone. You're in bed. You're reading. It's thunder and rain outside. You're a fucking child saying that. Fuck, dude. That'd be insane. So I'm going to go with that. You're still thinking on one more, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying not.
Nothing with Amy Steele. Maybe she gets in her underwear or something. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was trying not to go with part 2.
I got you
from part 2, but because there's several scenes with Amy Steele in part 2
Right.
that, you know, when she's on the bed with the pitchfork, because it's such an iconic shot, and Jason comes through the window.
Oh, yes.
I mean, like that's what I was leaning towards next as my next one. It's like, that's it. I mean, because I can't really. It's hard. It's hard for me to go outside of 2 because I love that one so much. So those are my 3. Jason popping up from the bed, the shot of Jason coming through the window with Amy Steele on the bed, and Mark getting killed and going back, falling down backwards.
Jason popping up from the bed. What one's that?
When he's revealed for the first time, when you see him in the sack and he's laying in bed, and you see
Oh
him
yes, he sits up like Michael Myers style.
Yeah, he sits up like Michael Myers. Like that is really good. Super chat from Jake Blair sends in $4.99, says, how do you guys feel about the Nazis once again being the main antagonists in Indiana Jones 5? Would you have gone in a different direction? Well, I know Tony, I don't think, has seen the Indiana Jones movies. I've never
yet.
seen any of the Indiana Jones movies, so Dave, take it away.
Okay, well, so I saw the Indiana Jones teaser trailer that came out the other day. I liked it. I mean, I wasn't blown away by it, but I liked it. In James Mangold, I trust. Obviously, I know it's getting a lot of hate online from the usual channels that you think would complain about it. So, you know, it's just like, you know, you'd think they get money for it. But anyway, so, or they, you know, you'd think that it was profitable for them to talk about that, to talk about shit they don't like. But anyway, I'm not saying they're not being genuine, but I just roll my eyes. So I like the teaser. James Mangold, of course, is a hell of a director. Logan, Ford v Ferrari, 310 to Yuma.
I love that movie, Ford versus Ferrari. That's such a good
Ford
movie.
v Ferrari.
I watch that movie like almost every year now.
Well, I'm telling you, if you're going to replace Steven Spielberg, which is not an easy task to do, James Mangold is a hell of a director to step in. So is Indiana Jones too old? Who knows? Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things still left on the table that we're not sure about yet. We got to see this movie, and there will definitely be another trailer between now and June. But I think it's important to remember that my understanding is that the Nazis are not the main antagonists in this movie in the same ways that they were in Raiders and Last Crusade. Raiders took place in 1936, Last Crusade in 1938. So it was at the height of Hitler's power. And this movie takes place predominantly in 1969, long after the Nazis were abolished. However, this is true, as a lot of you, I'm sure, know. A lot of Nazi scientists were actually brought over to the United States to work with NASA and rockets and all former Nazi scientists. I mean, they weren't anymore, but I think Werner Van Braun, whatever his name was. I think he used to be a Nazi as well, if I'm not mistaken. And he came over to the States and worked on all sorts. So that did happen. My understanding is the Nazis that you're seeing in the teaser are part of either a flashback or a prologue at the beginning of the movie, where we open the movie with Indiana Jones back in 1940. And that's why I think you saw a lot of black dots on Harrison Ford's face, because I think they were going to de-age him, which you see in the teaser they've done, which it looks spectacular. The best de-aging or deep fake or whatever technology they used I've ever seen in my life. It looks like Harrison Ford from 1981.
I mean, am I going to be lost watching it, or no, not really? Because I've never seen. They're three.
I don't think so. I mean, you have an idea of what Indiana Jones is, so I don't think so. Okay. I mean, I would watch the first movies before you watch,
Sure, I get that.
But the teaser, no, I don't think so. But so I think what you're seeing there, when you see Harrison de-age, those two shots where you kind of see him de-age in the teaser, I think that is part of the prologue, perhaps. And then my understanding is once that's done, like, you always have a prologue, right? In Raiders, it was the big ball chase scene. In Temple, it's at Club Obi-Wan.
Oh, is that where that scene is from? I've seen like in movie
one of the most iconic scenes in the history of motion pictures.
Oh,
and so that's from the first Indiana Jones movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then of course you have a prologue in Temple of Doom, which of course is at Club Obi-Wan, and that's right, I did say Club Obi-Wan. And he comes down in the tuxedo and the whole thing, and the all that kind of stuff. And Last Crusade, it's with River Phoenix and the train and all that. So I think this movie is going to be the same thing.
Oh, wait, River Phoenix is in it?
River Phoenix plays Harrison Ford, River Phoenix plays a younger Indiana Jones in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Yes, at the very beginning.
Is that the Sean Connery one?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
So I think
I don't know,
Jones,
so I'm like that.
No, that's okay.
Sorry.
That's cool. So I think Indiana Jones 5 is going to open in a similar way, right? You're going to have some sort of prologue, some sort of adventure that we're thrust into where India's already on. And I think it's going to be somewhere in the 1940s, and that's where you're going to see the Nazis and all that kind of stuff. But then once it was abolished at the end of World War II, there were always rogue Nazis left, right? Always, white supremacists and rogue Nazis and, all that. And I think Mads Mikkelsen's character is one of those rogue Nazis that I think still exists. So to answer your question, I don't think this movie is going to be so much about fighting the Nazis in the same ways that Raiders and Last Crusade were, but you do have a villain that is a rogue Nazi, if that makes any sense. So I think that's kind of where I think they're going to go with that. And listen, the movie could be complete garbage. Who knows? I know there's a lot of those usual channels that are talking about woke and Disney and, the rumors and this, that, and the other. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm in. I want to see it. I'm going to give it a chance because it's James Mangold and he's a hell of a director. Like I said, Ford v Ferrari, Logan, Copland, 310 to Yuma. I mean,
he's got a good resume.
He's got a good resume. And if anybody can replace Spielberg, they couldn't have chosen somebody better. Doesn't mean it's going to be great, but let's wait and see the official trailer when it comes out next year as well. So, yeah. That's how I feel.
Well, I can tell you one thing. I don't know much about it, but what I do know is that I'm not a fan of Nazis, unlike Kanye. So there you go.
Oh God, he talk about an epic disaster and meltdown. What the fuck happened?
But when you're worth $2 billion, I guess you could say whatever you want.
Is
right?
that what he's worth? $2 billion?
He's a billionaire. Oh yeah, he's loaded.
He doesn't get a shit.
Because people forget he's not just music. He's got his clothing line.
Right.
I just learned that he also has shoes. I didn't know he had shoes as well too. And I'm like, holy fuck! That's no wonder why this dude is rich. Yeah,
just crazy.
When I saw that the past week, I was like. I've said some shit on social media, but when I saw that, I was like, "What? What?"
Dude.
When you're a billionaire, I guess you can say whatever you want, right?
I guess you don't care. You don't care. Harry Hagen, my man, Harry sends in $10.
Before you,
yes.
Some people were. I want so that we're fair and balanced. Not that I'm saying we're like Fox, okay? No, some people were mentioning, and I wanted to comment before you got to the super chat about Cocaine Bear.
Oh, Cocaine Bear, yeah, take it away.
I just saw that trailer the other day. Fuck yeah, I want to see that movie. That one, it's based on a true story, but how they did the movie. That shit looks insane. Have you seen the trailer for that?
I saw the trailer for it. It looks like, to me, my first thought was this is either going to be really great or really bad. That was my first thought.
Or really bad but great.
It could be that too. It could be that too. Right. But then I'm wondering if it's so good, are they going to spawn a series like Cocaine Bear, Heroin Bear, LSD Bear?
No, because they're basing it on
Mushrooms Bear. I know.
And it was a bear that died here in Georgia.
Oh wow, okay.
Or was found dead, I should say, here in Georgia in the 80s, mid 80s or whatever, that it had ingested cocaine. So they're obviously taking a lot of liberties with it. I just think it's like if you were to make Jaws, but out of a bear.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
But on cocaine, right?
Right.
And I'm just like, I think it's going to, I'm not taking it seriously. There's no way I'm going into that movie seriously. And it really does look like it's going to be, I hope it goes to streaming so that we can watch it the first time on streaming.
Oh, that's a first watch.
Absolutely.
Because that's a movie you can half-ass pay attention to. And
exactly. And just have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Harry Hagen says, Jason is drowning. He drowns. Bubbles fade into the abyss. Then we see part of a rowboat. An arm thrusts into the water, grabs Jason and pulls him out of the lake. We never see who the arm belongs to. Ooh, interesting. That might be an interesting little, log line there. It's interesting, Harry. Interesting. Who pulled him out? Was it his mother? Was it Crazy Ralph?
Or did he pull himself out?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, now we're getting real like cerebral and fucking shit. You never know. Let's see here.
I think Gory, that is Ray Liotta's last movie, right?
It is, yes. As far as, I think it is. Reese Wilson says, as long as it captures the tone and magic of the first two films, especially, that will be enough for me. Of course, Reese is talking about Indiana Jones 5. I agree, Reese. I agree. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be, that was, you know what? They did good. They sent Harrison Ford off with respect. And it was a fun movie. That's it.
Yeah, because I can't imagine him doing another one after
No,
this.
he's not. He's 80 years old now. He was 79 when he shot that, and he.
I'm not saying he's not capable, but it just
no.
He's not a spring chicken.
No, and he wasn't a spring chicken when he did the fourth movie back in 2008 either.
Think about that. It's been almost. What's the math on that? 15 years since 14. Almost. I was gonna say almost 15 years since that last one.
Yeah.
But I remember that movie coming out. It feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it's been 15 years since that one came out.
It's crazy.
That's the one with Shia LaBeouf, right?
That's the one with Shia LaBeouf and Kate Blanchett as the villain. Yeah.
Was it good? I mean, I don't know.
No, I mean, it like a lot of movies that are like. In these iconic franchises, there's redeeming qualities. Like there's like, oh, that's a nice moment or that's a good shot. Okay. But overall, I think it was a disappointment. It was a big disappointment. They leaned heavily into,
Gotcha.
It just was a disappointment. I could go on and on, but it wasn't like the original three by any stretch of the imagination. And this movie coming out now, which is called Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, that's the one that's coming out next year. I actually like the title. Of course, the usual channels are saying how much they hate it because it's like they're contractually obligated to say they hate something.
Yeah, no, right.
It just kind of feels like that every now and then. You know what I mean? Like, God, do channels out there talk about what they love, or are we always talking about what we hate so much? I don't know. But the Dial of Destiny, I was like, I didn't immediately love it, but now I'm like, it sounds like an Indiana Jones title, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Temple of Doom. And like I said on my vid the other day, if social media had existed 40 years ago and The Temple of Doom came out, people would be going, The Temple of Doom? Okay, lame. They totally would. You know what I mean? Dial of Destiny sounds like an Indiana Jones title. I'm in. I want to know what this is and what it all means and the philosophical questions that are going to surround it. And I think it's cool.
Good shit.
Let me see here. Damn it, there was somebody I was going to. Oh, I got Reese. Vampire's Coffin says, look at Marathon Man from 1976 with the Nazi doctor. Classic movie. Yes, I don't know if I've seen Marathon Man, but I know the movie you're talking about. Kevin Boren says, hey guys, do you think someone will make a fan cut of all three Green Halloweens combined to make one coherent movie? I hope not.
I can care less.
Yeah, I don't know, Kevin. I'm not sure, but I hope not.
Yeah. I don't see myself going back to these three films for quite a while. Well, certainly not the last one. Maybe Kills if I'm in the mood for it. The 2018 same thing. It'll be like if I'm in the mood. I've said it many times. It's funny because Dave and I were joking about this before we started that we seem to repeat ourselves a lot about Halloween on here. But the ones that I only watch are the first four movies. Honestly, that's it.
Same.
I don't really watch any of the others.
Same.
After that, it's unless Dave and I are doing something like I'm sure there's a few that we're going to watch next October that we might revisit that we haven't watched in a while.
Yep.
Then that'll be it. You know what I mean? Like maybe H2O because H2O is coming up on its big anniversary.
It's a fan favorite.
there's another one that's coming up on an H2O is what, 25 next year?
Resurrection's 20 this year, but we didn't watch it.
But I think H2O is 25 next year.
25 next year, yes.
So yeah, so unless it's like that, where I'm like, you know, or if I'm showing my girl like these movies for the first time because she's never seen the majority of them, then that would be the only reason why to watch anything beyond the first 4 films. But yeah, anything like,
No, I'm the same, and to be fair, I realize that there's a bias there as well. I mean, we're 43 years old. We grew up with those movies, and they will always be Halloween to me. And I'm not taking anything. I don't want to take anything, because in each movie, even in Halloween Ends, there are things that I like. You know, in a vacuum, there's things that I like. I think the 18 film is the strongest out of all 3 of them.
Agreed.
But
yep.
For me, it's kind of like a what if kind of thing. For me, again, it could be because of my age. Obviously, your age as well. You're the same age. Halloween will always be Halloween 1 and 2 for me. You know what I mean? Like the Michael story, and 4 if I feel. But those movies in there, like I don't. Yep. That's just,
I just can't see myself sitting down, like getting like enthused about sitting down for 90 plus minutes, be like, yeah, I'm going to watch Halloween Kills, or yeah, it ends. Well, definitely not Ends, or even the 2018 movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like, unless I just don't see it.
I hear you.
So
I hear you. Yeah. Jake Blair sends in $4.99, says, I think the logical next step for a sequel to Cocaine Bear would obviously be PCP Panda. But maybe that's just me. I love it, Jake.
Or PCP Polar Bear.
Or PCP Polar Bear. Yes, that's right. Yeah. I like that, Jake. Nice. Okay, I think I've got all the super chats.
Although I just learned something. I did not know this. You always learn something. It's funny, though, because I've been on a National Geographic bear documentary kick, because I watched this old documentary called Grizzly Man. Really good documentary.
Oh, I've seen it. It's fucking really insane. Good. That guy was Timothy Treadwell was insane.
Yes.
What a fucking, and I say this, what a fucking idiot.
Big
what
time
are you
idiot.
Doing, you moron?
Yeah, I know. He got himself and his girl killed. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
he did. Like, he did. You rule of thumb. You see a bear, you keep your distance, or you just walk the other way. Not run. Just walk, go opposite of the bear. Oh, but anyways, watching that documentary, I started down the rabbit hole on YouTube, pulling up bear shit.
Yeah, watching bear attacks and shit. I love that shit.
Or just different stuff. Yeah. I didn't know that the largest bears are considered the koala, grizzly, and the Kodiak, and that the polar bear is actually not
koala bear.
Yeah, did I say that right?
No, Kodiak, I think you mean the Kodiak, the polar bear. And
no. That's right. Kodiak, grizzly, and the brown bear.
Right.
Those three. Right. That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Well, the brown bear is the grizzly. So polar bear.
They're separate. They're different. They're the brown bear and grizzly are different. I just learned all this. I thought they were all one and the same, and they're not. And then you have the black bear as well too.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which is more.
But the polar bear is huge as well.
But my point with the polar bear, it's not even considered a bear. It's considered a mammal. I was like, but okay,
aren't we all?
I know, do,
but
because
mammals.
science, they keep changing shit, and I just exactly.
What?
They keep changing shit. So
what?
It depends on what animals. You watch, and
we're all animals. Like we're all. Wait a minute.
But so that's why they don't consider, even though the polar bear is actually the biggest of them all, they don't consider it the biggest, and it's not connected to the bear families, like I mentioned, the black bear, the brown bear, the grizzly, and the Kodiak.
The Kodiak is the largest of the. See, I thought the brown bear. See, my understanding, and this is my understanding. My understanding was the brown bear is any bear that's brown, but you have, so they call it the brown bear to differentiate it from the black bear. But a Kodiak is a brown bear. It's just it's a specific size and.
Well, the thing is the Kodiak is specifically on. It's actually
Alaska.
Only in Alaska on one island.
That's correct.
And you cannot find it anywhere else. So I think that's why. Whereas like the grizzly bear, they're more along the coastline of Alaska, and the brown bears they're more in where the idiot was.
Right.
They're more inland.
Yes.
They're more in that Montana and going up to your neck of the woods in Canada.
Yeah. Well, they're in Alaska too, but they're on the
in Alaska.
Yeah.
But they're not on the shoreline like the grizzlies that are
right.
whatever.
Fuck.
So when they said the polar bear wasn't part of the bear, I'm like, it's got to be. What do you mean it's not a fucking bear?
What do you mean it's not a bear?
That's what I was saying. I was literally
it's
screaming
a bear.
at my TV.
Hang on, I know. I'm YouTube. Hang on. I'm is a polar bear. It's even in the name. It's in the name.
I know. It's these things what they do nowadays in science and shit. They try to change shit and complicate it like Pluto's not a planet. Fuck you. Pluto's a planet.
Here it is. Because they spend most of their lives on the sea ice of the Arctic Ocean, depending on the ocean for their food and habitat, polar bears are the only bear species to be considered marine mammals.
That's it.
So
marine mammal, that's it.
So I don't think they're not considered bears, but they're the only bears to also be considered a marine mammal. Okay. Because I was like,
well, that makes sense because they do swim in water. I do know that. I've seen photos of bears the person was not calling, but the way the person was wording it in this, because there's all these YouTube videos out there.
Of course.
And you all know, you dive into that rabbit hole and you're pulling up everything. And when this person's not calling, is saying that it's not a bear, I'm like, fuck, it's not a bear. What do you mean it's not a bear?
What are you talking about, you sack of... I can hear polar bears in the Arctic right now going,
I know, polar bears are like, I'm offended by that. I identify as a bear. I'm a bear. Fuck you.
Yeah, 100%. If anybody needs to be offended now, it's those fucking polar bears, man.
But yeah, that dude... Okay, for anyone, the documentary Dave and I are talking about, Grizzly Man, watch it. It's in this dude.
It came out in 2005. I remember.
What was his name? Timothy what? Again?
Timothy Treadwell.
That's it.
And he was a guy that he was a little not a little. He was eccentric. He was weird.
He was weird.
He thought he was the bear whisperer, and he thought he could get and he did. I mean, it's amazing. He got as
13 years before this happened.
It's amazing he was able to do what he did. But he'd be there going, hello, Mr. Muffin. Hi. And the bear's just sitting over there.
This close.
Yeah, well, not that close, but within like 10 feet.
Pet them.
Yeah. And it's like, what the fuck? Eventually, he was mauled to death and eaten alive by a bear, and so was his girlfriend. And it's
it's captured on audio.
It is, but no one's ever heard it. There's one.
I don't think we should hear it.
No, I don't either. There's one on YouTube where I think it's fake personally, because as an audio guy, I'm listening to the audio I
listened to that, and you're right, it is fake, because what the doctor says in that documentary, what the documentary person says, doesn't add up to the video or the sound that's being released. It's like, no, that's not what they said they heard in the audio. That's being, I think that's
and
bullshit.
The audio itself doesn't like all the right tools are there, the wind, the tent, the bear sound. And if you didn't know any better, you'd be like, wow, this sounds horrific. But I was listening with headphones, with these headphones, and I have my eyes closed and I'm listening, and it just sounds like the voices are not in the space. Like when you're mixing audio or you're doing ADR, one of the most difficult...
scream didn't sound like the scream that they said they heard.
No. And one of the most difficult things to do is to, when you're recording ADR, is to mix and blend that voice into the environment where it's supposed to be. It can't have too much bass. It can't have, it has to sound like it's a voice that is in the environment and in the space. It can't sound like Dave McRae in his voiceover booth or how I sound right now. I don't sound like I'm in an airport right now. I don't sound like I'm on my phone or I'm using, the recorder on my phone. No, I sound like I'm using professional audio gear, and so when you're doing ADR, when you're mixing and you're blending certain voices in certain environments, to an untrained person who's trying to put one over on somebody, sometimes if you listen very carefully, or sometimes you don't have to listen that carefully, you can tell that the voice is not recorded it's not recorded in a tent in the middle of nowhere. It's recorded clearly in somebody's booth, or, whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
And listening to it, there were some moments where I was like, oh, that's not bad. But then there's some moments where I'm like, it's not,
because they said he was moaning a lot, and he's not. You don't really hear him moaning.
No, you don't.
I mean?
I think it's fake. I think it was put out there. As far as I know, I think the tape was destroyed. I think, or somebody's friend has it or something. His friend,
because I just literally watched this a couple of days ago in the documentary, when the documentary person who's listening to the audio or to it, he's telling his friend. Now, of course, this is almost 20 years ago that this documentary came out.
Yeah.
That you should destroy it. My hope is that she did.
Yes.
That she did destroy it, and that she did sell it. You know what I mean? To make a quick buck.
Right.
Because
you could.
Because you totally could.
Yeah, you totally could. HXMXCXDX sends in $4.99. I've never seen that.
Hell of a name.
It's a hell of a name. I've never seen you here before. Thanks. Says, I always felt it would be cool to explore the intertwined Freddy versus Jason mythos. What do you guys think about a standalone prequel or sequel? Well, I'm not a big fan of crossover or of versus films. Right. I understand the appeal, and I understand why they can be a lot of fun. And certainly you go back all the way back to Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. And those things, these types of things have existed for a long time. But I think because and I admit it might be a Dave McRae thing. I don't know. But because I take this shit probably way too seriously, I always like my villains, I like serious Freddy, dark, scary Freddy, and I like serious Jason, if you can ever say there ever was one. But you know what I mean? Like I like things to be taken seriously, and I think the sheer idea of having them cross over, like Michael versus Pinhead, Chucky versus Leprechaun, I don't know. It's a farce. It's a whimsical kind of I don't think those movies can be taken seriously. So, you have to have the cracking the one-liners and it's just not my thing. I think they should live in their own universes and their own things. And I'm just not a big fan of crossovers versus films, but that's me. That's me.
There is one crossover that I have been waiting for since the 90s, and that is Willie versus Bruce. Free Willy versus Jaws.
When you said Willie,
I want to see my killer whale versus my great white.
For some reason, when you said Willie, I thought of Willie from the show Alf. The Tanners.
Free Willy.
Yeah,
the killer whale.
No. I was thinking of the '80s show Alf.
Yeah, that's right.
And how the dad's name was Willie, and I thought you were gonna go. Right. I want to see Willie versus Alf, and I'm like, really? You want to see like a what? I think
Willie versus Bruce. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I think that
good old showdown between a great white and a killer whale. Although I think the killer whale would take it out in like a second. But
well, I don't know. Maybe not the size of
not
Bruce.
Like a second, but not the size of Bruce. That would be a good showdown.
That'd be a good showdown.
Obviously, you'd have to do it digitally. You couldn't do it for real because I don't think you could train a shark and a killer whale to do that.
No, not at all. Not at all. All right. Well, listen, we've been going for over 2 hours now. We should bring this show. Oh, Reese Wilson, my man.
Coming in the paint hard.
Coming in right at the buzzer, sends in $14.99 Australian dollars and says, for the channel, Dave, here in Australia, we call our Canadian cousins cold Aussies or snow boggins, I guess. Don't worry, those are terms of endearment. Hey, I'm down, man. It's cold. Well, that's because you see our seasons are also reversed all the time too. In Australia right now, you're in your summer. I mean, it's, the weather's beautiful and everything. And of course, we here in North America, depending on where you are, we're definitely into our cold and chilly. What is it right now? It says it's 38 degrees Fahrenheit right now outside here in Toronto. So, quite chilly. Thank you, Reese. Really appreciate that, my man. My fellow Indiana Jones fan. Reese is a big Indiana Jones fan. We'll have a lot to talk about when that movie comes out, Reese. Let me tell you. All right, folks, listen. That's gonna do it for Tony and I here on this episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Comment below and let Tony and I know your thoughts on the Friday the 13th series going to Peacock called Crystal Lake. What do you want to see? What don't you want to see? What do you think they're going to do? What did you think about all the speculation that Tony and I had here today? Jump into the comment section and start the discussion below. Let us know. Thank you, of course, to our moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, Andrew Stevens. And thank you to the Super Chat questions that came in and those non-Super Chat questions as well. We really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Tony, any last things you want to say?
No, good show. We'll see you guys next week.
Good show. We'll be back next week, next Monday night, 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great rest of your week, and Tony and I will talk to you soon.